Medieval sexuality, the forbidden pleasures of a pious age. When we picture the Middle Ages, we often imagine solemn monks, devout nuns, and villagers trembling before the wrath of God, a time of chastity, obedience, and spiritual purity. But peel back the heavy veil of religion, and you will now find a world seething with carnal desire, secret lust, and pleasures that dared not speak their name. Forget the sanitized version of history. Medieval Europe was drenched not only in incense and holy water, but also in sweat, whispers, and scandal. But people didn't stop being human, they just got creative. Anal and oral sex were technically considered non-reproductive, so they were condemned, but that didn't stop curious couples from experimenting behind locked doors. Some even argued that if it wasn't penetrative, it wasn't really sex. Sound familiar? The church preached purity, but people found loopholes. Yes, the church was obsessed with controlling sexuality. Marriage was sacred, sex was only for procreation, and anything else was labeled a sin. Virginity was a weapon especially for women. A woman's virginity was her most valuable asset, especially among the nobility. It was tied to family honor, marriage contracts, and political alliances. But many women faked their purity using tricks like sponge tampons soaked in blood, or paying off midwives to swear they had intact hymen. And if a nobleman wanted a virgin and couldn't find one, he'd simply take what he wanted. Consent was often a luxury few women could afford. Lust in the cloisters. Monks and nuns were not saints. Think the monastery was a haven of celibacy. Think again. There are countless records of monks caught with prostitutes, or nuns giving birth in secret. Some convents became brothels in disguise. One bishop lamented that the nuns under his care spent more time with wine and men than with prayers. Letters between medieval men reveal passionate language, stolen touches, and hidden romances. In some monasteries, special friendships between monks were known and even tolerated. As long as no one got too obvious, lesbianism was rarer in the records. But not because it didn't exist, just because the men writing the laws couldn't imagine women doing such things without a penis. In one infamous case, an entire convent was shut down after several nuns were found pregnant by the same priest. Midwives and healers were sometimes instructed to stimulate her genitals to determine if she was possessed or simply sexually frustrated. Most surviving examples date from the 19th century, not the Middle Ages. That said, the idea that men needed to guard their wives' purity was very real, and they used surveillance, threats, and sometimes violence to do it. It sounds absurd, but it reflects a terrifying truth. A woman's pleasure was seen as both powerful and dangerous. Forbidden love and gay desire, same-sex love was taboo, punishable by prison, mutilation, or worse, but it happened. Sex work was illegal, yet everywhere the church condemned prostitution, but cities licensed brothels. Why? Because it was seen as a necessary evil. Better for men to sin with a prostitute than commit adultery with a married woman. Some brothels were run by widows or retired sex workers. Others were owned shockingly by the clergy themselves. In Avignon, a bishop once received rent from a brothel next to his cathedral. Trial by orgasm. Yes, that happened in rare cases. A woman accused of witchcraft or hysteria could be subjected to, shall we say, unconventional tests. Chastity belts. Myth or reality? You've probably seen them in museums, metal underwear designed to lock up a woman's genitals. But historians now believe chastity belts were mostly myth or later fabrications. Most surviving examples date from the 19th century, not the Middle Ages. That said, the idea that men needed to guard their wives' purity was very real, and They used surveillance, threats, and sometimes violence to do it. Public shaming as sexual punishment. If you were caught committing adultery, bestiality, or sodomy, the punishment could be brutal. Naked parades through the village, public whippings, branding. In one German town, adulterers were forced to wear matching donkey's ears while riding backward on a mule. The message was clear. Sex outside God's law wasn't just a sin, it was a public humiliation. Medical myths and sexual cures. Medieval doctors believed that women had wandering wombs and needed regular sex to stay healthy. If a woman was melancholic or fainting often, the diagnosis might be uterine suffocation, and the cure, either marriage. The church tried to control desire, but desire always found a way, and in those candlelit chambers and shadowy alleys, medieval people revealed a simple truth. Even in the darkest of times, lust is hard to kill. Absolutely. Was it pure? Not even close. Or manual stimulation by a midwife? Men, on the other hand, were told not to masturbate too often, or they'd run out of vital fluids and die young. The plague made people hornier. When the Black Death swept through Europe, killing millions, many people reacted not with prayer but with reckless lust. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die became a real survival strategy. In some cities, orgies broke out. Prostitutes were in high demand. Death was everywhere, and so was desire, because if the end was near, why not indulge? So, was medieval sexuality repressed? It was a time of contradiction. Sacred vows and sinful nights, holy relics and hidden lovers. The church tried to control desire, but desire always found a way. And in those candlelit chambers and shadowy alleyways, medieval people revealed a simple truth. Even in the darkest of times, lust is hard to kill. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us every week for the most twisted tales history tried to bury. Because here, we don't just study the past, we dig up its dirtiest secrets. Welcome to the side of history they never taught you in school.